Okay.
Welcome,
Hi.
everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bergflow's Pivot Ready Live. As always, we want to invite you guys to comment, share. Please share this far and wide. Our mission is to reach 25 million people. So the more people that share it, the more people that get to hear it. For those who don't know me, I'm Wesley from Bergflow. I run the service division, and Amy, who's our operations director, she runs everything in the background, not only for this company, for some other companies that Dirk owns. For those of you who listened last week, Dirk spoke on Pivot Ready Live. And our theme for today, sorry, not last week, the week before, 2 weeks ago, he did the last one. We didn't have a Pivot Ready Live. So the theme that we want to talk about today is getting ready for 2023. And the way that we do that is we have to start looking at our business by the numbers. I coach a lot of clients. I spend a lot of time with business owners, strategizing and going through their businesses and seeing where they're stuck. And more and more often, I see the exact same breakdown where business owners, they talk about everything and they're involved with everything except in their business, except looking at the numbers. And there's some really good literature out there that says numbers are the language of business. And you should be able to look at the numbers of your business and say, are we succeeding or not? And I was on a coaching call with one of my clients this week, and one of the divisional leaders said, oh, we're 2% up from last year. So even though it's a positive, there was no goal. The goal wasn't, hey, we need to be 10% up. There was this ethereal goal of, oh, we just needed to be up. We want more sales. And in fact, they had more sales, but in a contracting market, they only had 2%, and they had other competitors enter their market. So in essence, they didn't really grow because there's other people in the market that have outgrown them. So we want to talk a little bit about numbers. Amy is our numbers expert. She looks at all the numbers from budgets to KPIs to all those things. And the thing that we want to talk about today, and please feel free to put a chat or a comment in the chat if you guys want, if you want us to talk about something specifically around your numbers, is what is the most important number that you're focusing on? So, Amy, in your experience, when business owners look at their business, generally, what is it that they focus on?
I would say probably for most of them it's revenue, but with the caveat that it's revenue as a lag, meaning your P&L comes out, like our P&L comes out on the 15th of the month for the previous month. So when I'm looking at my P&L and the revenue, it's telling me what I did last month, which is already 15 days behind. That makes sense.
And revenue is for vanity, profit is for sanity. And I think a lot of people look at a lag measure like their P&L statement. So they get this very convoluted P&L statement from their bookkeeper, and they're like, bottom line, what are we making? Oh, we made, $10,000 last month or $100,000 last month. And one of the interesting things is, when I work with clients, one of my clients, they go out and they do installations, and they've had massive growth. I mean, they've really showed tremendous growth in the last 3-4 months. But as their revenue has grown, some of their callback numbers have increased as well. And the problem with that is they don't factor in that callback as a cost of services. So let's say they did a $10,000 job. When they go back, they were going to make 35% profit. But with a callback, they're down to 12%. Because instead of generating another job or doing another job that generates 35, they're spending the labor cost again per hour at a callback. So my brief to him was, look at all your callbacks and roll back your call out figures as an addition to your cost of services. that will give you a true reflection of what you actually made. The P&L is not going to tell you, hey, we didn't make money on that job, or we only made 10%, or we paid in, because the P&L just says labor cost. There's an hourly rate on the labor cost. So it doesn't translate in, hey, these callbacks are actually costing us money. And
okay,
for me,
so let me ask this though. So do you think, you asked the question, what do I think most people look at the most? Do you think they look at revenue, or do you think they look at profit more often?
I think they glance over revenue as a lag measure, but at the basic level, most business owners looks at cash flow statement and money in the bank. That's it. They say, how much money have I got in the bank, and what is my cash flow statement? And depending on the cycle of your business, if you're in HVAC, you do higher ticketed items. If you're in window cleaning, you do smaller transactional items. If you're an MRR, like a pest control business, it's a little bit different. So each business has its own economic model. I see a lot of people, a lot of business owners, they have the initial foundation of costing a job correctly, but that call out fee is an example. Or one of my clients, they went and did an installation, and one of the light bulbs in a Christmas light installation was the wrong color, one bulb. And always, it's not the house or the business that's 2 miles down the road, it's the hour and a half away, one. So they had to send our technicians to site to go change out one light bulb. And so we often talk about systems and processes and why it's important to have systems and processes. And we're going through this as an evolutionary business as well. Is once the numbers start kicking, once you start getting more business, it's really going to start testing the systems that you've built. But I see a lot of business owners try and build a system, and the perfect system based on what we did in the past or what we think we need to do in the future. If once your revenue increases, it's going to highlight some of the weak spots that you have. And then, there's a word that Dirk likes to use, which probably is not your favorite word as a systems builder. It's called renditions. And I know that we tend to have, we look at that page from different sides. For me, MVP, minimal viable product, is the first rendition. And I know in your world, as somebody that specializes a little bit more, is MVP is not the mark, the first full rendition, then you go back and you make rendition 2. So I'm just one of those people that are wired for speed. Everything about me is how fast, how quick, how easy, what's the shortest route. Does that help the business? Yes. In the short term, it's what gives you that initial inertia. But being in a working relationship with somebody like you in our company, you're then able to say, okay, we can't keep just building MVPs, because our project list just keeps increasing. Now, all of a sudden, we've got 20 open MVP products. And which one do you say is the most important to go back and bring to rendition 2? In my book, in your book, it'll be finish. So there's always this, and especially on business owners that's entrepreneurial, they want to grow their business. I was in a conversation with a client this morning. They're in $100,000 business, and they're like, hey, I want to instill everything that you guys talk about. I want to grow my business. I want to build systems. I want to build processes. I want to have divisions. I want to have this. I want to have this. But you know what? I'm just trying to pay my bills. And my advice to this client was, you have to set a target for the next 90 days to say growth and increasing my bottom line is my number one focus. Does that mean you forego systems? No. Systems are there, and the systems will get highlighted, the need for systems. But a lot of people are sitting on this side of the fence of growth and saying, you know what, I'm going to build a system, I'm going to build a system, I'm going to build a system. End of the day, people run systems. There's a human capital that's going to be spent to grow your business. No single
Well,
marketing strategy out there is going to grow your business to the level it needs.
I agree with that, but I also disagree with what you're saying because as a systems person, so when you say minimal viable product, what I think of in my head is McDonald's. Like McDonald's gives me the minimal viable hamburger that they can possibly get off the assembly line, but they're the most systemized, probably the most systemized thing you can do. So the difference is when a system is a system, like you have a system. If the system is scalable or not, you're always delivering minimal viable product based off the system you're running. So when you're talking growth, I've been working with a hospitality business, and we had the conversation today that, hey, we have a room that the heater's broken. We can put a space heater in it and we can still rent it out. Somebody's going to pay us a 50% discounted rate. That's $100 that we are getting, which is today's minimal viable product. And then if we can get the heater fixed before next week, we double the income off of that product. Because, and so it's a minimal viable product today doesn't have to look the same as it does tomorrow. You can improve the system in a very short period of time, and you can constantly improve the system and constantly raise your level of product that you're delivering to incorporate that growth. Because whether raising the level of product gives you more revenue off of it, or whether it makes it more efficient and you can now do 2 Christmas lights in the time it would have taken you to do 1 because you tweaked your scheduling system. There's 2 pieces of it, but it's always the delivering a minimal viable product. It's what product are you delivering today? So I don't have a problem with delivering a minimal viable product as long as we're not living in that same standard and you're improving it. Your systems are what's improving it, and your systems, to the word iteration, your systems can be iterated every day to make it 1% better. How are you making it 1% better so that next week the same thing that I'm delivering today will result in more income, more growth, more whatever it is moving forward?
And to that point, and I love the fact that we have the same intention but different perspectives. And I think it's true for a lot of companies. You have people that have different value systems around different things. And when you look at a smaller company, a chuck and a truck, a one-man band, everything in that business will always be MVP. And that's why, when I coach clients and they come to me and they're like, hey, I need to hire an office manager. I'm like, why? No, because we need the systems built and this. And I said, well, that's an operational task. It's not an office manager's task. An office manager fills the water cooler and buys lunch and opens the door and answers the phone. So for me, an office manager per se serves the office because it's in the name. An operations person like you is somebody that looks at the well-being of the company. And for me, those are 2 very different things. So, I always preach this and I teach this and I fail at it. Is a company, to be truly a company, it has to be 4 things. It has to be profitable. So you have to make money in what it is that you're doing to keep the lights on. It has to be marketable. Otherwise, nobody's going to know about you. You need to have a strategy around that. It needs to be scalable, which means you have to look at the bottlenecks. So in our business, I could be the bottleneck because the MVP that I've built is around my capacity or my ability. Where the true sense of the MVP, by your definition, potentially is, did we build an MVP independent of a single point of failure or you as an individual? So again, we're both talking MVP. And then lastly is it has to be sellable. Your company as a company has to, bottom line, when you want to grow a business, ultimately the goal is either to build a business so that your kid can run it, or you want to sell it. Most businesses, Elon Musk, he's listed Tesla and all these things. So at some point you want somebody to either buy into that business or buy over the business, or you're going to need some investment capital. Is people are not going to look at your cash flow statement. They're not going to look at how much jobs do you do per week. They're going to look at your P&L. What is your actual P&L? And, that's why one of the first things we always say is bookkeeping as an example. Bookkeeping is a task. That's something that you can outsource. Building systems around scalability is where you need to rely on the special skills of somebody like you, who's a strong operations person. There will always be the entrepreneurial spirits in the service-based industry, because that's why they exist. There's always somebody, there's a need out there, somebody wants to fulfill that need. There will always be some entrepreneurial flair. And a lot of, some of my clients, a lot of them are saying to me, well, it's scary now that I'm relinquishing control over me doing it to now the system is doing it. So I see this tug of war happen within them where they say, well, if I'm not going to do it, I want to make sure that it's the perfect system before I let go of control. And, we squeeze down on this pipeline of ours called opportunity, because every time we stranglehold growth because we want to make sure that it's the perfect system. And I have nothing against the perfect system. That's the end goal. But
there is no perfect system. Yes. And I think bringing it full circle. So to your point, a chuck and a truck, it's always going to be a minimal viable product. But it could be a really great product. The guy who's pressure washing my driveway might do the best job, but he can only do so many in a day. And the flip side of that is, to your point, your client with the Christmas lights, well, their system broke down to create when they scaled, their standard went down. So they didn't create a system to uphold the standard of scale. And that's where those two things you have to meet. The system is not so that somebody can do it exactly the way you do it. It's so that somebody knows what the standard and expectation is and can maintain that, because there's two things. One, you can multiply it. It's scalable. And then the client's going to get the same service every single time, regardless of what technician shows up, regardless of who's doing their service, regardless of what happens. And thirdly, you're going to get less callbacks. You're going to get less expense associated with it because it becomes more efficient at the same standard. And so that's where, and this is where I think you and I kind of tend to go against each other, because you have a standard that you can deliver, and how we get that scalable so that we're delivering the same standard, but it's defined in a way that we can teach somebody else what that standard is. They're never going to do it exactly the way you do it. They're going to tweak it. They're going to add their own flair. They're going to do where they are more efficient, but it's defining the standard of deliverability, not the process of it.
And that's the thing is,
I don't know what just happened.
I thought I was only going to change my view. Did I change everybody's view? Well, now you can see me closer.
There we go.
Okay. Sorry, I accidentally clicked my mouse. I'll leave it alone. Prime example is, Dirk does what I do, but in his way, and I do what I do in my way. Does that make him right and me wrong? Is, if we're held to the same standard, it becomes repeatable and scalable. Mm-hmm. There will always be a personal component to that. But back to our point on running your business around the numbers, is a lot of people say, well, I want to build all these systems. I want to have 5 systems built. I'm not going, well, 5 systems are not going to grow your business. If you have enough incoming, so to your example of McDonald's, they can have the perfect system on how to build a burger, but if they sell 1 burger a day, the business is not going to grow. The perfect system is there. So it is not an or, but an and. We have to perfect the system, and we have to run enough numbers through this. It's a numbers game. We have to put enough through here so that the system can be improved. That people can know, hey, I can build a perfect burger if I have 2 hours. But we all know that hopefully McDonald's doesn't take 2 hours to put your Big Mac together. They've got 3 minutes. The first time that guy builds, he's not going to be hey, you need to be on the 3-minute line. He's probably going to be inside, servicing clients on the inside, not in the drive-through. So again, it's a rendition. It's where you are. So when I talk about,
and I think too, Wesley, you're to that point. Systems are like culture. You have it. It's just a question of whether you're defining it or not. You run a system, whether you're a power washer, a window cleaner, a pest control guy, whatever, like you have a system that you do. If you're an individual person, you do it by a system. Creating the system is not hard. Whether you hire a high school kid to follow you around and write down everything you do in the day, you just created your system. Like your system is there. You now have to put numbers to your system, meaning yes. What is your goal? So, okay, if I have 1 technician and my goal next year is to get to 5 technicians, what does that look like? Now I have to iterate the system to come up with variables where it's going to crack, meaning, okay, my scheduler calls me on my cell phone. Well, are they going to call each individual person? Do they do it? Like now you just have to start scaling it by the numbers, but you have to know what your end numbers are in order to scale it to that point, if that makes sense.
And to that, you're exactly right. It's not which comes first, the chicken or egg, the system or the number. And it's not, neither of the two comes first. Is there needs to be growth in order to perfect the system, and there needs to be a system to run people through to see where it breaks down. I was talking to one of my real estate clients this week. I keep saying this week like it's the end of the week. It's only middle of Tuesday. So anyway, I was talking to one of my real estate clients this week. And they were talking about numbers, and we did our company business planning clinic last week. So for us, it's a 2-day offsite, not only because it's important to us at a company level, but it's also an opportunity for us to come up with a rendition of an improved system that we teach our clients. And every time we go through that baptism of fire of, hey, we're not a $10,000 company anymore, we're $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million. Every time it's going to require a deeper level of grit in each of us. So those 2 days that we spent offsite, we actually have our workflow business planning clinic coming up on the 15th of December, which Amy will put a link on if you guys want to register to that a little bit. Is the business planning clinic helps you put numbers together for your business on how you're going to succeed. So back to my point on the real estate client, this guy wants to 2x his company. So round numbers, let's say it's a $50 million real estate company. He wants to go to 100 million. A lot of times when I look at business plans and I see people present a business plan or a strategy, they're like, oh, I just need better agents. I just need better technicians. And you can have the best technicians, but if there's not something that feeds them, that holds them accountable, the business is not going to grow. So let's talk about growth, because that's what a lot of people are interested in. Is in this example, if it's a $50 million company going from a $100 million company, at the baseline, you have a hard number, which is how many real estate transactions do I need to do? So if 50 million was 100, 100 million is 200 transactions. That's a hard number. You can motivate each individual broker, or you can say, as a team, we're all committed to this number. So if 200 transactions means we've got give it 10% attrition, we've got 220 properties that goes under contract. Compound another 10%. So that means I need to have 264 listings, which means if I've got a 50% ratio on top of that, that means I need what? 1,300 some leads. That'll give me 264 just to get to that bottom number of 200, because you always have to account for the attrition. And a lot of people will send out estimates for Christmas lights or power washing, and so there's always an attrition number. And I see a lot of people focus at the top numbers, like, let's just send out 50 million estimates. So what happens is they send out 50 million estimates and nobody replies, and they're like, shit, our growth plan doesn't work. That's where you have to have strategy. So one, in the VGST, we talk about vision, goal, strategy, tactics, and tools. So strategy one would be, hey, we need to send out so many estimates. Strategy two is, what is our follow-up strategy to make sure that we have repeat clients? Strategy three is, how do we circle back to those initial clients to make sure that, so you run different strategies, but each of those has a number. And I see a lot of business owners, they've put this goal out there to say, hey, I want to 2x my company. I want to go from 500 to $1 million next year. I'm like, how are you going to get there? No, I just need to hire 4 more technicians. That means what you're basing your numbers on is capacity. Right or wrong or indifferent, it doesn't matter. If you're basing your growth based on capacity, that's fine. Then use that same formula throughout to say, if I'm doubling my capacity, that means I need to make sure there's enough coming in to feed this capacity. So some of it is a revenue goal. Yeah.
You have to, if this is all new to you, you're going to be in a conundrum, because you have to know your numbers to set your numbers. In other words, one of our measurements is we offer free strategy sessions, which is a time where our guides sit down with you, go over your business, see if we can help you successfully reach your goals over the next year. Well, Wesley has to know, on average, if he does 10 strategy sessions in a day, how many of those are going to result in clients? How many of them are not going to be a good fit, or they go a different direction, or whatever it is, just like you were saying about estimates. But in order for us to say, okay, now we need to do 250 strategy sessions, that's going to give us our goal of 100 clients, we have to know what that conversion rate is to begin with. And so you have to start knowing what numbers you have, so that when it comes time to setting your goals and figuring out how you're going to grow, you can figure it out based off the numbers, because otherwise you're just shooting fish in a barrel and guessing. And it's just one of those things where, again, it's much like systems to me. You do know your numbers. It's just a matter of if you're aware of them or not. And if you're applying them, meaning if you're saying, and if you're saying, okay, my technicians can put up 5 houses of Christmas lights in a week, but then your technicians are coming back and saying, yeah, but I got called back, so I lost an entire day in callbacks. Well, now your capacity number's off. So if those numbers are not applicable to, or real, I'll put it that way, if they're not real numbers, then your growth trajectory is going to be off as well. So taking the numbers into account, but taking all the numbers into account. Back to our point in the very beginning is you can't just look at your sales numbers. You can't just look at your profit or your revenue. Like, you can't just look at a single number. You kind of have to look at everything, paint the big picture of your business, and do the math equations as to set your goals to paint the roadmap.
And you know, and I'll use this as an example. So let's go back to the real estate client that I spoke to. Is if they want to, you know, double their revenue, so they kind of know what it takes to double the revenue from a transaction point of view, because that's what they focus on, is how many transactions do I have, and it's giving me this amount of money for the company. Everything after that is, well, I think it's this, and I think my conversion rate is this, and I think my appointment rate is this, and I think my leads list is this, and, you know, MLS says there's so many houses. I'm like, you have clarity around this much of this bigger plan. And that's
which
when,
for
you know,
today might be the case, but you're going to have to go off of the I think today to paint the picture for next year, and then track it along the way and be able to adjust to say, oh, what I thought the first 3 months of the year has proven very wrong, and I got to make an adjustment now. So.
Yeah, and to that point, you know, Dirk shared it earlier today, is above average people adjust the activity, average people adjust the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of people, they have this goal, and then they adjust the goal to match the current level of activity. And they're like, I just wish I had a better team. And it's like, well, your team doesn't know that you want to grow. You know, I was talking to another client, and they said, oh, we're 2% up, you know, this quarter versus last quarter. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? What does 2% mean? No, it's $75,000. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? Was that the goal? Because if more is the goal, $5 is more. So this client has gone and really broken through some heavy ceilings, and their business is on a very strong upward trajectory. But they started looking at the other numbers, because they started getting clarity around what is my conversion number from this to this. Because if, to your point, and I mean, I absolutely love the fact that we're having this conversation, because people say, why do we have to have systems? When you have cold leads, as an example, and you have appointments. So let's say you're a real estate agent, or you're a power wash, and you've got estimates and you've got jobs booked. There's a system in between those two that you need to improve. The system is not the entire thing. There's a system that says, this, if I run this system, it gives me a percentage, it gives me a number. Then from book to complete. Okay, well, maybe we dropped off 5% because people canceled, or they weren't home, there wasn't electricity on site, whatever it is. And then how many people pay within 7 days? Do we take a 50% deposit? So each one of those is a system. And so when we talk about systems, people think, oh, I've got to build everything out. You have to start, for what I do is I start at the bottom. What is the end result? You have to start at the end, work your way back. End result is this. Okay, what system can we build to improve this? Our appointment to booking. And if appointments is your bottleneck, it shows you, okay, that system in my business is broken. Maybe I need to get a call center in the Philippines. Maybe I need to get my wife to take phone calls. Maybe I need to stop writing numbers on the back of a cigarette box, whatever it is. I need to build a system around this. Because if you're crawling around an attic somewhere or power washing outside and somebody phones you and you don't have a system on how to call them back, then your business is not going to grow. So systems there's a bigger system, but there's these individual processes or systems in between that you need to track. And I think a lot of people get inundated with the idea of, oh my gosh, I have to build the perfect system. The perfect system, in my view, and Amy, you can send me some hate mail later on, is MVP, 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 MVP. in my view. Right or wrong, that's the way I view it. Relying on somebody like you is how do we connect those links in the chain so that it forms, because a lot of times the weakness will be somewhere else, and we try and go and fix the conversion at the bottom when it's actually a conversion somewhere else in the system.
Well, and I think here's the thing. I think the MVP is dependent on your goals. So everything Bergflow teaches is that people are going to be what scales your company, right? You have to find the right people. You have to grow your teams. You have to scale your company through your people. Mm-hmm. So I was working in one of our other companies today, and it's a membership-based company. So they buy a membership. If I'm doing the memberships, which a year ago I totally was, they buy a membership, I get notified, I contact them, I get the waiver signed, I get the names of their spouse, like I collect all the information, I know what has to happen, I can process about 3 of those a week, I'm good. But if my goal is to get to 100 members a week, I can't do that. Therefore, my minimum viable product means I have to develop a system that gets me the results I need in a way that I can teach it to somebody else. So to your point, if you have appointments booked or you have quotes given and appointments booked, if your minimal viable product is 5%, if you're saying for every 5% of every quotes I'm given, I'm going to book an appointment for, and that results in your goals for your company, your minimal viable product doesn't have to be that good. Mm. But if you want to get that conversion rate up to 50, 60, 75%, you better up your minimal viable product, meaning you better create a much better system that's going to fill a lot more gaps to increase your product or production, therefore getting to your goals. So you don't have to have the perfect system. The perfect system is going to change at every size of company you change, at every product you offer. It doesn't matter. There is no perfect system. What you have to do is build the system that's going to get you to your goals. And if you're running a system the way you were running a system when you were a 1 or 2 man show, and now you have 5 technicians, you're inefficient. I can guarantee you're inefficient, and you need to improve your systems.
And so to that point, when we talk about numbers and how numbers and systems, complement each other, is let's talk real money here. I see a lot of business owners, and again, I had conversations this week with business owners that are saying, "Oh, I spend $10,000 a year on marketing." I'm like, "Okay, what's your ROI on that?" "Well, it's kind of hard for me to calculate." I'm like, "Well, then you're not looking at your numbers. You're just throwing money against the wall and hoping something sticks. Unless you can calculate what your return on investment is on your marketing spend." And yes, there's a lag of 90 days or 180 days, depending on what industry you're in, if it's seasonal and all that stuff. But you have to be able to say, okay, if I'm spending $10,000 on marketing, all that becomes is a dial in your business. So if you're lagging on appointments book, you can turn up the volume on the marketing spend, which will fill your calendar again. It'll fill your schedule again. If you know the numbers around your return on investment. But if you're just throwing numbers and you don't know how much of it, the only control that you have is at the bottom. So you don't know, hey, I can turn up my marketing spend and get more business. I can turn up my knock and drop and I can get more business. I need to improve my value stack or my offer to my clients because I'm sending so many quotes, but I'm only closing so many jobs. That means somewhere in between here, that something's broken. Maybe I'm not following up with a client. That's a system. But again, you need to know those numbers at each of those different stages.
Well, and I think that goes back to, you can't just know a number. So to the point of marketing, most people track marketing activity, which is how much money am I giving and what is it getting me? So if I'm paying $5 a Facebook post and I spend $5,000, it gets me whatever, 1,000 Facebook posts. I don't know how to do math. You say I'm the numbers person, but math is not a strong suit. But the difference is, what are you're measuring the activity, you're not measuring the results. If one Facebook post in a targeted market on the east side of town gets you 12 customers, but on the west side of town it gets you 20 customers, that's measuring the results of that activity. And you have to look at both of them. So it's never just a number. You have to look at the numbers, and you have to paint the picture with all of the numbers available to you and what it's telling you.
Yeah, and to that point, business owners oftentimes, and we've been guilty of it ourselves, is there's so much MVP, or there's so much, marketing money thrown against the wall and all these things, and we don't track those numbers. Then instead of stuff becoming important, it ends up on the urgent side, and therefore everything is urgent. It's urgent that I phone that client back. It's urgent that I do this job. It's urgent that I do this call back. So everything is urgent, which leads us to a reactionary state.
Which means nothing's urgent.
Yeah, which means nothing's urgent, because
the definition is something has to be more important than the rest of it.
Yes. And so when you look at your numbers, it'll tell you what is the important number to focus on. And that's our objective. We've done it for our own company, and we do this regularly for our other clients. We have a business planning clinic coming up next week. So I advise you guys, for those that are listening or sharing this out, is the business planning clinic runs 9 to 5 next week. It's online. You can click on the link and grab a seat. If you're attending that, you as a company owner and your leaders should be on that. Because effectively, by the end of that workshop clinic that we're going to run for the day, is you will have a blueprint of what 2023 is going to look like. Not what you want it to look like.
We're going to give you time. It's not just you sitting here listening to us for 9 to 5. We'll give you blocks of time to think about something, work on something with your team, and start putting pen to paper on it as well.
Yeah, and as Amy said, it's a workshop style. So we're going to go out, we're going to train you guys and say, okay, for the next 30 minutes, you and your leadership are going to go into a breakout room and you're going to talk about this. And at the end, you should have these numbers dialed in. Meaning, at the bottom, how many clients do I need to service to increase my revenue by this? Okay. Next, what's my conversion rate? Next, what is my conversion rate from there? That way you can stack on top of each other, and then you can set a goal for 2023 and adjust your activity to match that. Otherwise, we're going to set New Year's resolutions and say, I want to grow my business, and we're going to find COVID, market, whatever excuse out there and say, oh, the market shifted, it's downturned, it's this or that. And it's because people don't build systems, one, around looking at their numbers, systems around how to be held accountable to their numbers, and two, lastly, how to build systems on how to improve what the numbers tell you. And again, it's a reactionary state. When I'm booked a week out, nobody does growth calls. Until that busy week is done, they're like, oh my gosh, we have no work for the week thereafter. And then they go back and they go through these peaks and valleys all the time of high activity, low activity, high activity, low activity. And the way that you grow your business is by constantly turning that growth wheel. The same way as which you have somebody like Amy, who's an operations person, who constantly, in our world, we need somebody that can build on the fly. But we also need somebody that can go back and say, hey, this is a bigger project. It's not going to get built on the fly. So all these wheels have to turn at the same time. But being able to walk away from a business planning clinic like this at the end of the day saying, I know my numbers for the next year. That's what our intention is. So we sincerely hope you guys take us up on this offer. We only offer this towards the end of the year. We would love to see you and your leadership in there. It's the Business Planning Clinic coming up next week, Thursday from 9 to 5. It's going to be workshop style. If you guys want to reach out to us, want to have conversations with either myself or one of my guides, or even Amy, or our growth division, please email us at contact@bergflow.com. If you want to talk through something, or you have an opinion, or we're too embarrassed to ask a question on here publicly, please email us. We'll schedule some time. We'll go through some of your business strategies, see where some of the bottlenecks are. We truly appreciate getting to connect with business owners. It's why we're in business. It's why we do what we do. So yeah, please reach out to us. Our email is contact@bergflow.com. You can always just check us out on our website as well, bergflow.com. There's all our future trainings and that type of stuff is on there as well. So if you guys have any questions, Amy, anything from your side?
No, I think that's it. I think next week we're going to dive a little bit further into how the numbers and the people kind of match up as far as accountability and that kind of stuff. So it's a good one to bring your leadership team on. We'll be on Tuesday again at the same time. And then, like Wesley said, the Business Planning Clinic on Thursday. Perfect.
So next week, we're going to dive in a little bit more on the numbers. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for those who were online today. Have a great week. See you guys next Tuesday.